People say betrayal is loud, a door slammed, a shout, a dramatic walkout. But mine came quiet, like fog, like rot behind wallpaper. My name is Linton, and for 7 years, I gave myself to a company that saw me as nothing more than background noise. Not at first. No, in the beginning, I believed in it. The mission, the work, the so-called team. I was 25, straight out of grad school, eager and stupid. I said yes to everything. Picked up the slack, stayed late, learned to predict problems before they happened. They called me the glue. You know what glue does? It holds broken things together. Quietly. Invisibly. Until it dries up and cracks. I wasn't flashy. I didn't charm my way through client dinners or schmooze at industry events with a champagne flute and a fake smile. I showed up early, caught mistakes that would have cost them millions, and patched up slide decks in the back of Ubers on the way to meetings I wasn't even invited to. I was the one who called our biggest client, Praxis Biotech, on Christmas Eve when their restructure almost went nuclear. I walked them through options while my family waited at the dinner table. I missed dessert, and no one even remembered to say thank you. But that's the thing about being reliable. They stop noticing you're carrying everything until you drop it. There were warning signs. Times I should have spoken up. Like when the new junior associate I trained told me she made $6,000 more than I did. She was sweet. Oblivious. She laughed when she said it, like it was a funny little oversight. Or the time I pulled an all-nighter fixing a quarterly pitch deck only to find out the meeting happened without me, my name scrubbed off the credits like I was never there. Still, I stayed. Told myself it would all pay off eventually. That loyalty was its own kind of currency. It wasn't. Each time I was passed over, each time someone else got praised for work I bled into, a little piece of me went quiet. I began to wonder if maybe I wasn't doing enough. That kind of erasure, it rewires you. Makes you doubt your own memory. I told myself, just hold on. Be patient. They'll notice. But they didn't. They noticed the results, not the person behind them. Then came that day. It started like any other. A new internal spreadsheet dropped in the shared folder, the Q1 revenue tracker. Color-coded, smug as hell. Praxis had exceeded projections. Big wins. Bonuses issued. I wasn't on the list. Not a mention. Not even a line item. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes, feeling my heartbeat in my teeth. Rage and disbelief pulsing through me like static. This wasn't about money anymore. It was what that silence screamed. You don't matter. I scheduled a meeting that same afternoon with David, my manager, and Kelsey, the VP of Ops. 15 minutes. Just a conversation, I told myself. I even dressed for it, blazer, neat hair, calm voice. I had receipts. A full dossier of results. I laid it all out. Clean. Precise. Not angry. Just real. Then Kelsey gave me that smile. The kind that says she's already written the ending. And she said it. Let's be realistic. With a laugh. Like I just asked for a yacht instead of a raise. David didn't even hide the smirk. No questions. No counteroffer. Just dismissal, gift-wrapped in politeness. And something in me, something old and tender and stupid snapped. I didn't argue. Didn't beg. I stood up, adjusted my blazer, and said, thanks for your time. Then I walked out. No notice. No goodbye. Just a clean, deliberate severing. I didn't stop walking until I was 2 blocks away, heart pounding, eyes dry. Somewhere behind me, Slack channels were lighting up. Whispers starting. The quiet girl just walked out. Is she okay? What happened? They'd never say the truth. Never admit what they did. Because that would mean admitting I mattered. I didn't even take my mug. The one I brought from home. Matte black. Chipped handle. 7 years of mornings clinging to that ceramic like a ritual. I left it there. Like a gravestone. In the Uber home, I stared out the window like I was watching someone else's life unravel. I waited for the crash of regret to come, but it didn't. There was only stillness. A strange, terrifying peace. But that night? That's when the fear crept in. Not panic. Just a slow ache. A tide of questions that wouldn't stop rolling in. What if I just ruined my career? What if they blacklisted me? What if I wasn't good enough? What if this was a mistake? I sat at my kitchen table gripping a glass of water like it was a lifeline. The walls around me felt too quiet. Like judgment. And then, I thought of her. Elena Daniels. The client rep from Praxis. The one who always treated me like more than an assistant. The one who knew the truth about who kept their company afloat. I hadn't talked to her in weeks. Not personally. Never crossed that line. But something made me reach for my phone. Her name lit up the screen. I stared at it. 1 minute. 2. 3. Then I hit call. She picked up on the second ring. Warm voice, casual tone. Hey stranger. Everything okay? I opened my mouth, but only one sentence came out. I quit today. Her silence told me she already knew it wasn't simple. And then, she said the last thing I expected. Finally. And in that moment, something inside me began to wake up. Something dangerous. Something free. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I laid there staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it hum like it was whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. My phone lay next to me on the pillow. Elena's voice still echoing in my head. Finally. It wasn't pity. It wasn't concern. It was recognition. She'd seen it coming before I had the guts to do it. And now that I had, the free fall had begun. At 3:13 a.m., I opened my laptop. Not for job listings. Not to fix another deck. I opened a blank document and titled it. Things they said I couldn't do. The list came faster than I expected. Start my own firm. Sign a major account. Build trust without selling out. Be the face of a company without being client pretty. Ask for more without being labeled difficult. I typed until sunrise. That list wasn't a dream. It was a blueprint. By noon, I turned it into a draft, a one-pager, rough and gritty, outlining the bones of a consultancy that would never carry someone else's name. Strategic communications, internal crisis leadership, client retention models, all the work I used to do in secret under David's signature. Now, it would be under mine. Elena showed up at 9 o'clock sharp the next morning, like she always did when a meeting mattered. 2 lattes. No small talk. She sat across from me at the kitchen table and said only one thing. Show me. So I did. I walked her through my mess, the raw pitch, the breakdown of services, a rough value matrix I'd sketched out on the back of a Whole Foods receipt. No branding. No logo. Just truth. She listened. No blinking, no pity, no performative nods. When I finished, she leaned back, crossed her arms, and said, I'm in, but not as a favor. As a client. I almost forgot how to breathe. She slid a napkin across the table and pulled a pin from her coat. Write me a name. I hesitated. It felt too early, too fragile. Like saying it aloud would jinx it. Then I thought of Kelsey's voice again, that laugh. Let's be realistic. So I wrote it. Via agency. From the Latin verere, to flourish, to thrive. She smiled. That'll do. The next week blurred. I registered the business. Built a rough site. Drafted contracts. My hand shook the first time I hit send on an invoice with my own logo at the top. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was velocity. David's Slack messages sat unread. Kelsey sent an email that began. Just wanted to check in. I deleted it. They weren't checking in. They were checking how much damage I could do. I wasn't ready for what came next. It started as a whisper. A former client messaged me privately. Hey, heard you went solo. We should talk. Then another. And another. They weren't reaching out to be nice. They were reaching out because they trusted me. Not the brand. Not the firm. Me. And that's when it hit me. They were never loyal to the company. They were loyal to the person who cleaned up the blood. Me. Then came the twist. Late Wednesday night, I got a message from Sam, one of the junior analysts I trained. The one who always looked at me like I had all the answers, even when I barely held it together. They said you were on leave, she wrote. That you'd be back next quarter. I stared at the message for a full minute. Leave? They lied. They didn't just dismiss me, they tried to erase me. Paint over my exit like I was just on vacation. Like my disappearance was temporary. Manageable. A speed bump. Elena called as I was typing a reply. I just got off a call, she said, voice low. They tried to push one of your juniors into the lead seat for the Praxis account. My stomach dropped. How'd it go? She didn't laugh. It tanked. We're pulling the account. I sat frozen. Elena wasn't threatening. She was executing. This wasn't revenge. This was alignment. I want the proposal tomorrow, she said. Your name on it. No placeholders. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. You'll have it by noon. I hung up, and I realized something that shook me. They weren't afraid of losing me. They were afraid of what I'd take with me. Trust. History. Continuity. I wasn't the note-taker in the corner anymore. I was the storm they never saw coming. And the worst part? I was just getting started. The proposal went out at 11:42 a.m. 15 pages. Crisp, bulletproof, bloodless. My name stamped across the top in bold, unapologetic font. It felt like a confession letter to a past self, the one who begged for recognition in a boardroom that smirked at her. I had sinned. Then I exhaled like I hadn't breathed in years. By 3 p.m., I got confirmation. Praxis Biotech was officially mine. No firm name attached. Just mine. I thought I'd feel victorious. But what I really felt was quiet. There's a silence that comes when power finally shifts in your direction. It doesn't roar. It hums, low and constant, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. Thursday morning, a knock shattered that silence. I wasn't expecting anyone. I figured it was a delivery, maybe the office chair I ordered. But when I opened the door, it wasn't a box. It was him. David. Corporate windbreaker. Tight smile. I was starting like he'd practiced this in the mirror. Mind if we talk? He asked, holding his phone like a shield. I didn't say yes. I just stepped back. He walked in like he still owned something. Looked around at the whiteboard, the folders, the client deck spread across my dining table. My world. My terms. He sat at the edge of my armchair like a man too afraid to get comfortable. I'm going to be straight with you, he said. We're surprised. Things are escalating. And it's starting to impact people. I tilted my head. Good, I said. It should. He flinched. Tiny. But I saw it. Look, I get it. You were frustrated. The raise thing, we mishandled that. But this reaction? It's short-sighted. You're burning bridges. I crossed my arms, leaned against the wall. No, David. I'm building something. There's a difference. He tried to smile. The one he used in client meetings when he didn't understand the pitch. You don't have the infrastructure. You think a loyal client makes you a business. I didn't blink. No. But it's a start. One you'll never have again. The air shifted. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to contain me. And the worst part? He still thought he could. They're talking legal, he said after a beat. You know that, right? You didn't give notice. You left mid-quarter. Now you're walking off with IP and a client. I stepped forward, calm and lethal. You don't own trust, David. You don't trademark loyalty. You think a non-compete locks people in a cage? They stay because I made them feel safe. You treated that like free labor. His mouth opened, then closed. No comeback. Just silence. I didn't let it stretch. I leaned in, soft but sharp. You laughed in my face when I asked for a raise. You smirked while Kelsey dismissed me like I was asking for a miracle. But the truth is, I was the one holding the damn foundation together. His voice cracked. We can fix this. I'm not your enemy. No, I said. You're not. But you're a mirror. And I've seen enough. He stood, unsure now, his eyes scanning the room like he might find an exit back to control. You'll regret this. I shook my head. I already regret staying as long as I did. The door clicked behind him with a finality that echoed in my ribs. I stood there, heart steady. I had just burned the last bridge. And I felt nothing but fire in my chest. Later that night, I got a call. From Kelsey. I almost didn't answer. But something told me to pick up. Her voice was flat. Tired. Not fake cheerful like usual. We need to talk, she said. I didn't speak. She continued. You took Praxis. Fine. But it's bleeding now. Word's spreading. We're getting questions. Still, I said nothing. Then she added, too fast, too rehearsed. If you come back, under a new title, with revised terms, we can fix this. We're prepared to be flexible. There it was. The dangle. The offer that was never made when I needed it. Now that they were bleeding, they were bargaining. No, I said. A pause. No, you're not coming back? No. You're too late. She sighed. You don't want to make enemies, Mara. And that's when it happened. Something in me snapped, not with fear, but with clarity. Neither do you, I said. But you already did. The moment you told me to be realistic. The moment you laughed. Then I hung up. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't just business anymore. This was war. The next day, Sam, the junior analyst, messaged again. Can we meet? In person? I hesitated. Then said yes. We met at a cafe far from the office. She looked nervous, glancing around like she was being watched. Then she pulled out a folded paper. slid it across the table. I opened it. A printout of an internal memo. My name. Bold. Accusations of breach. Language about client poaching and brand defamation. I looked up. She whispered, "They're building a case." My blood ran cold. Then she added, barely audible, "Kelsey knew you were being underpaid. She approved the numbers. She bragged about it in a team lead call." I sat back. My lungs suddenly too small. She wasn't just part of the system. She was the one pulling the strings. It had never been just David. The real betrayal was Kelsey. And now I had proof. The memo burned in my hand like a live wire. They were trying to bury me. Spin my exit as sabotage. Frame trust as theft. Prepare for a legal takedown while smiling through HR emails. But the part that made my stomach twist wasn't the legal threat. It was the signature at the bottom of the memo. Kelsey R. Langford, Vice President, Operations. She had signed off on my silence, profited from it, laughed in my face, then wrote my name into a file like a virus they had to quarantine. I stared at that signature like it was a crack in the wall I'd leaned on for years. How many times had she used that pen to sign denial letters? Or approve bonuses for men who worked half as hard? How many careers had she quietly strangled with a polished smile? I didn't leave to burn bridges. But now? Now I wanted the whole building to fall. I spent the next 48 hours buried in paper. Sam gave me more. Internal chat logs. Screenshots. Budget approvals. One document showed they'd rerouted project funds through my line items to make another department look more profitable. My work, used as padding. A hidden subsidy. Smoke and mirrors for quarterly reports. And the worst part? I recognized the spreadsheet. I'd built it. They used my own system to erase me. Friday night, I sat at the kitchen table alone, stacks of paper and rage spread around me like a war map. I hadn't showered. I hadn't eaten. I didn't care. What I was building wasn't a pitch. It was a reckoning. And the first step was exposure. I opened a blank doc and began writing. Not a report. Not a lawsuit. A story. My story. Every detail. Every slide deck I rewrote. Every compliance deadline I caught. Every unpaid overtime shift disguised as team spirit. And then I listed the receipts. The discrepancies. The proof. I didn't use adjectives. I used timestamps. Cold. Precise. Undeniable. At 3:17 a.m., I hit upload. Not to LinkedIn. Not to Glassdoor. To a secure drop sent directly to the Praxis board. The client. The one who trusted me, not the firm. The one who had more skin in the game than anyone else. I didn't send a message. The data would speak for itself. By Monday morning, the board had responded. Not publicly. Not with press releases. But I got a text from Elena. They've called an emergency audit. Another came from Sam. Kelsey's office door is closed. David hasn't shown up all day. Then, silence. Not fear. Not shame. Stillness. Like the moment just before lightning hits the ground. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment. Lights off. Laptop closed. I held a photo in my hand. One from 6 years ago. A retreat. Santa Barbara. I was the only one sober enough to drive the team back from a winery they couldn't even name the next morning. In the photo, I was off to the side. Not even centered. Holding keys. Smiling like I was proud to be useful. I stared at that girl. And I started to cry. Not pretty tears. Ugly, full-body sobs. It wasn't grief for the job. Or the betrayal. Or the fight I'd started. It was grief for all the versions of me I'd abandoned just to be allowed in the room. The girl who stayed late. Said thank you after being passed over. Wore appropriate lipstick. Laughed when they did. Lowered her voice in meetings. Told herself it was almost enough. I cried for her. Then I whispered, "I see you now. And I'm sorry." Tuesday morning, I took one last step. A final move. A bloody one. I printed 5 copies of the memo. The one with Kelsey's signature. I mailed them certified, trackable, to every client the firm had listed on their website. No note. Just the document. A quiet detonation. Not to destroy them, but to make sure the silence never returned. Let the board do the math. Let the clients ask the questions. Let the world see what they did in the shadows. At 10:03 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I picked up. "Kelsey's been suspended," Elena said, breath sharp. "David's next." "It's unraveling faster than I thought." I didn't say anything. She continued. They're going to come after you. I nodded to myself. Let them. I'm not hiding anymore. A pause. Then, softly. You're not the same person I met 3 years ago. I know, I said. She didn't survive this. That night, I poured wine into a new glass. Not the old chipped mug. Not a paper cup from the office kitchen. Glass. Real. Heavy in the hand. I stood by the window and watched the city breathe beneath me. Everything I feared had already happened. And I was still here. Still standing. More than that. I was dangerous now. The next few days were a blur of fallout and silence. Not the kind of silence you get when you're being ignored. The kind that follows a detonation. Like everyone's waiting to see what survives the blast. On Wednesday, I got the email from Praxis's legal team. Short. Cold. Final. Effective immediately, Praxis Biotech has terminated its partnership with Slate and Langford. No explanation. No PR spin. Just done. That account had been the cornerstone of their portfolio for 6 years. I'd been the one holding it together with tape and late nights. And now? It was mine. Signed. Sealed. Renamed under Vire Agency. I didn't celebrate. I didn't drink champagne or blast music or dance around my apartment. I just stood there, looking at the signed contract on my screen, and let it land in my bones. This was mine. Not stolen. Not begged for. Earned. Through blood. Through years of silence. Through fire. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Sam again. She just sent 3 words. It's happening fast. Attached was a blurry photo of the office. Movers wheeling out boxes from the executive floor. An HR rep escorting someone to the elevator. I zoomed in. It was David. Hair disheveled. Face blank. That tight little smirk wiped clean. No applause. No goodbye speech. Just another bad exit in a company that treated people like batteries. And then came the call I wasn't expecting. Not from the firm. From a reporter. She'd seen the memo. One of the clients I mailed it to had passed it along with the documentation of underpayment and manipulation I'd compiled. She wanted a statement. I almost said no. Then I remembered the girl in that Santa Barbara photo, the one in the background, holding the keys. I owed her more than silence. My quote ran 2 days later, tucked inside a feature piece about quiet retaliation in corporate culture. I didn't say much. Just this. Loyalty without reciprocity isn't professionalism. It's captivity. The piece went viral. People started messaging me. Not just peers, but strangers. People stuck in their own silent wars. People who read my story and saw themselves in the footnotes. One message just said, "You made me brave." And that's when I understood. This wasn't just revenge. It was a signal. A flare in the sky for anyone who'd ever swallowed their worth to survive. I hired 2 more people that week. Not rock stars. Not big names. Real ones. Quiet fixers. Overlooked problem solvers. The kind of people who made systems run but never got the credit. I paid them well. Gave them Fridays off. When one asked why, I just said, because I know what it costs to give more than you're given. Then came the final act. A week later, I drove past the old office. I wasn't planning to. I just ended up there. The lights were on in the corner suite, David's old office. Except it wasn't his anymore. Probably some interim puppet brought in to stabilize the wreckage. I parked across the street. Left the engine running. I just wanted to see if it still made my chest tighten. If the memory of that place, of the meetings, the gaslighting, the quiet erasure, still had claws. It didn't. I felt nothing. Just distance. Like looking through glass at a life I outgrew. I reached over to the passenger seat. There it was, a small black folder. Inside, the first 5 client contracts signed under Vire Agency. Each one was a piece of something real. Not corporate scraps. Legacy. Mine. At home, I opened the drawer where I kept my old badge and keycard. I used to look at them like relics. Proof that I once belonged. But now, they looked ridiculous. A leash made of plastic. I took them to the sink, turned on the tap, and watched the logo melt beneath the water's heat. Then I tossed them into the trash, without ceremony. It wasn't rage. It was closure. People ask me now, how did you do it? How did you walk away? How did you take a legacy client with no backing, no partners, no plan? I tell them this. They thought I was asking for a raise. I was asking to be seen. And when they refused, I became impossible to ignore. Not everyone stayed quiet, of course. I got messages, anonymous accounts, whispers from former colleagues trying to scrub their involvement, sudden LinkedIn endorsements from people who'd never looked me in the eye. But none of it mattered, because for the first time in years, I wasn't performing for anyone else's comfort. I was building something on my terms. And every policy, every hire, every email signed with my name was a line carved into the stone of everything I used to believe. That silence was safety. That loyalty was protection. That invisibility was value. A few weeks ago, I got a message from a woman I didn't know. Young, just starting out. She said, "I saw your story. I've been scared to leave my job. Your words made me feel less alone." "Thank you." I replied. "You're not alone. Just quiet. For now." Because that's how it starts, doesn't it? Not with an explosion, but with a breath, a crack, a refusal to shrink one more inch. And if they're listening now, the ones who laughed, the ones who smirked, the ones who dismissed me with a shrug, I hope they understand this. I never needed their permission. I just needed them to get out of my way.